Oh, another podcast. I guess we could call this a podcast now. The Fitter Food Lover podcast.
Do you think? Going with the podcast now.
Go with a podcast. I am well, it's going on to the YouTube stuff and I do put the links out. So I think we call it a podcast. And I think I need to extract the audio of this one really and start putting it out as a podcast. But no, it's cool. We're doing it in the afternoon instead of the evening. So
Yeah.
I'm not any fresher.
No, I feel all out of whack. It's a Friday. I'm not at work. It's the middle of the afternoon. We're doing a Q&A. Yeah, sorry, my fault. Messed it all up.
No, it's all right. It's an early finish. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, true.
And the weather's nice. So if I finish it, I might actually get a chance to enjoy some of it. We'll
Yeah,
see.
it's lovely. We've been out. Me and Lander. He's absolutely pooped now. He's just lying on the landing, fast asleep. We went out for a bit of a walk, and I didn't realise quite how warm it was out there. But yeah, lovely today.
It is. It's very nice. So we've just started the next block of the shaping up, and it's been good looking at some of the workouts and some of the little comments on there, and the girls are doing
it's been
well.
amazing.
Yeah, really well. And they're back into the swing of things, which is good. So you've got the questions.
I have indeed.
So we'll go through. I'll let you pick the order, and we'll go through and get straight into it.
Okay, so the first one is tips on reducing carbs in meals. So this is from tracking, having a little look where like MyFitnessPal, NutriCheck, they tell you what your full macro split is. Noticing your carbs are a little bit higher, just tips on reducing carbohydrates.
I mean, the first thing here is not, it depends. Now, I know who wrote this comment, and they've got other things. So there's things like HbA1c, the blood sugar levels, and Carrie has been pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic really in terms of levels, but we've reduced that and managing it. So I know from her point of view, she is going to be thinking about carbs.
Yeah.
So we'll get on to tips with that. But generally for most people, it's not anything as, in terms of whatever your goals are, whether it's fat loss, weight maintenance, gain, calories are key. That's the first thing. And then protein. And then carbs and fats sort of take care of themselves, but it's down to preference.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. It is down to preference. But one of the things we need to also be aware of is that we need to make sure we're having enough carbs to fuel activity. So if you are exercising, if you are active, carbohydrates, that's the fizzy drink. Carbohydrates, they are our body's preferred source of energy. We want them. We do want them in there. And they're very good for, let's say you're doing a strength session. Most people kind of go, oh, we just need the protein. This idea, we're going to get a protein shake down within 30 minutes, that anabolic window, which we know it doesn't really matter. But actually, if you are going to do that, you are going to get more benefit from having some carbohydrates post-workout with your protein shake because, and people are afraid of this hormone, but because insulin actually helps with muscle building. So if we can get carbs in, fuel the body, spike the insulin a little bit with the protein, that actually encourages muscle power and muscle growth, muscle repair and muscle growth. So, there are bodybuilders who, if they are using supplements or injecting themselves with substance, they actually inject insulin to help with that. And not that I would ever recommend that to anybody. It's dangerous, but they do. So this whole thing about worrying about insulin, if your goal is to get stronger and to build muscle, and everybody's goal should be to build muscle or at least preserve it in some way, insulin is something that we need. We shouldn't be afraid of it, and avoiding carbohydrates because of insulin spikes is just a daft thing. But having said that, if you think that your carbohydrates are high, it's just the simple stuff. It's reducing the portions, and swapping it for. So let's say for pasta, for example, the standard portion on a packet's about 75 grams. For a lot of people, 50 grams of dried pasta would be enough. People might have the microwave rice or use rice. A whole pack of microwave rice is 2 portions. Have half of it, or even split it across 3 meals if you want to. So it's kind of looking at ways of reducing those portions. And then rather than just thinking, reduce that and have less volume,
Yeah.
Stick your veg in, add your salads, add something like that, just to try and increase the volume for less. Other things you could do as well is look for more fibrous stuff. So looking at things like whole grain options have slightly less carbohydrates, or net carbs, which, because some of those carbohydrates are going to be fiber, which means that our body's going to absorb less of that. So looking for higher fiber options is a good option. But really, it's don't worry too much about it. As long as, and the recommended is kind of for optimal health, somewhere between, so whatever your body weight is in kilos, 2 to 3 grams, possibly even 4 grams per kilo. So if your body weight's 70 kilograms, then you're looking anywhere between 104 to 150 grams up to, say, 280, 300 grams. That's fine. If you've got within that range, that's absolutely fine. If you're concerned about blood sugar levels, then obviously bring it down a little bit towards the lower end, but you still need them. Because if you cut carbs out, there are things like porridge oats, which are fantastic for helping to control blood glucose levels. Some of the other vegetables and things in there, you'll end up kind of missing out some of the whole grain stuff, and you've got lots and lots of health benefits with those. So yeah, I think in short, don't worry too much. But if you are a little concerned about the amount, then just reduce portion sizes.
Yeah.
Things like sandwich thins instead of using bread.
Yeah, all of those things.
Same.
Yeah, we have bagel thins a lot and wraps at home as like a substitute.
Yeah.
Rather than having like full bread all the time. Like I say, it's just reducing those portion sizes when you're looking at your rice and pasta is really like your best way.
Yeah.
But like you say, you don't want them feel like you're having a much smaller meal or you're missing out. So just make sure that you're then substituting it in with extra vegetables or something.
And things like, if you're having beans on toast, this is one of the conversations of having with somebody else about this. They have beans on toast and it's 2 rounds of bread. I said, well, just have one, eat the beans, and then add, veg, or add some egg, some healthy fats, and you're reducing your carbohydrate portion, but you're having more volume there to try and you're replacing some of the calories with other stuff. And it could well be, as well with that is carbs on carbs. So some people, like, if you go out, you'll have a meal with chips and you'll have a side of garlic bread or something. It's like, it's little things like that. I mean, I don't think Carrie's doing that. She would genuinely be eating really, really healthily. But I think for Carrie, the main thing is look at the portion size you're having and slightly reducing that, and then increasing your volume of veg or salad.
Yeah. You don't need to cut them out completely. Like say, you'll be needing them for those workouts to power you through them. But
and muscle recovery. Yeah, we need it.
Yeah, exactly. And then just take away a little bit, replace it with something else, and see how you go from there.
I think that's a good one.
Next, we'll go from our favorite question of the week, Will. How to stop yourself from peeing when lifting, letting out a little wee when lifting.
And that, do you know what? I train, as I said before, most of my clients are women, and this is something that it's a topic of conversation that comes up more often than you might think.
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, when I worked in the nursery, there was obviously like a lot of women that I worked with, a lot of mums in particular. And yeah, it's a conversation that comes up all the time. One of them would sneeze and be like, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Go to the trampoline park's another one that's apparently not
another. And in terms of exercises, I very rarely do, or I have to warn people if they're doing star jumps. We're doing star jumps, and you see this mass exodus to the toilet, or box jumps. Box jumps are the other one. Effectively, you've sort of answered this one, but yeah, it's pelvic floor exercises, and
absolutely.
It's not just mums. Those muscles can weaken as we get older. Not so much for men, although it does happen a little bit with men as well. And a lot of it is sitting down. Most of our lives now, the jobs are desk-based. We're sat down and we're not using the muscles in and around the pelvic area as much as we are. So it's practicing those pelvic floor exercises and those sorts of things. I'm not an expert in pelvic floor exercises. There's loads and loads of resources online.
Yeah,
loads online. Kegels. That's what I know.
Yeah, get Kegel balls, practice pelvic floors. Like I say, there's loads of bits online to just have a little look at. But again, they're quite easy to do, like consistently. It's not really much effort out your day. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Again, like when you're trying to build muscle in the gym, it's another muscle that you're looking to build effectively.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keep at it over time. They will get stronger, and then you'll find that will happen less. You might not get rid of it completely, but it may just be a little bit easier, and you might not see it happen as often.
Yeah, and you kind of said there, it's consistency, it's practicing these things. And the thing is, there's a lot of people, and now I've recommended this to clients who have recently had kids, you know, and they sort of 6-12 weeks postpartum, and they're getting back into the gym, and they're doing those exercises because that's what they've been told to do by the healthcare workers. But then once they get to a point where it's improved, they stop.
Yeah.
And it's remembering that, you know, it's as with everything, and whether it's health, fitness, getting stronger, losing weight, whatever, stretching to reduce aches and pains, you don't just do it until you get the result. You do it, as you know, once you've got the result, you keep doing it, because you've got to maintain the behavior that achieved the results post results to keep those results.
Same as, you know, if you don't want to relate it to like muscles in that sense, is if you think about like learning anything where you use your brain for it, you know, learn to play an instrument, a language, anything like that. If you go until you've learned it, but then you just stop, you'll suddenly find, oh, I can't quite remember how to do it, and it takes you time to get back into it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I say, you've just got to be consistent with these things.
But the one thing is, if you have done it in the past and it's worked, there is a thing such as muscle memory, so it doesn't take as long to get it back again, and that's the thing to remember as well. So yeah, pelvic floor exercises to avoid that. It's a good question. I like that one, and it comes
I like
up
that one too.
more often than you think. I know she put like a laughing thing afterwards, but yeah, it's a serious question. It's a good one.
Yeah, and like I say, it affects so many people, but not everyone will talk about it. But yeah, it definitely does affect the majority of people.
Does.
Progressing weights in the gym. So this was one where someone is currently lifting like a weight for a certain exercise, up for 10 reps. So really good reps out on that one. Next weight is too heavy, and they can't physically lift it. So what's the best way to now progress so you're still progressively overloading in that exercise?
And yeah, and this is quite common, especially when you start doing things like incline chest presses or shoulder presses. So we're using small muscles, or even things like tricep extensions, where you go up on the machine and it's a big jump. Because what you've got to think is that it doesn't sound like a lot. Let's say you're shoulder pressing, I don't know, 10 kilos, and you can do 10 reps at 10 kilos. In most gyms, the next weight up is going to be 12 or 12.5 kilos. And that doesn't sound like a lot. We say, oh, it's only 2 kilos, or it's only 2.5 kilos. It's a 20 to 25% increase.
Yeah.
And when we look at progressing exercises, a good rate of progression can even be as low as 1 or 2%. But generally, we're looking at 5 to 10% over a period of, say, 2-3 weeks. You're increasing the weight by 5 to 10%, like that. For small exercises, or small muscles, like using your shoulders or your triceps or bicep curls, that 20%, 25% increase is going to be too much. And it could be the difference between doing 10 reps or none at all, because you can't actually physically get that weight up. So what you've got to think is other ways of progressing. So progressing is not just with lifting weight. We also need to think about volume of lifting. So volume is the number of reps you do multiplied by the weight. So if you lift 10 kilograms for 10 reps, that's 10 times 10, that's 100 kilos volume. If you do it for 12 reps, you've lifted 120 kilos. So we've progressed the volume. So you could do more reps. You could even do an extra set. So if you do 3 sets of 10 and you go, well, actually, I could do another one and go to 10, you know, close to 10. And you think, actually, that 4th set's just enough to fail at, say, 8 or 9. That, again, is progressing. So you could try and do more sets. You could slow it down. So you could, on the eccentric, so shoulder press, instead of kind of going 1 up and then 2 down, so count of 1 up, 1, 2 down, you could say 3 or 4 seconds down. And it's the same for squats and things like that. So if you slow the lowering phase, what we call the eccentric phase, when the muscle is lengthening, then that's going to make the muscle work harder as well. So it's increase your reps, increase the sets, increase the time it takes to complete a rep. You can also shorten rest times as well, and then progress that way. And what you'll find is that by doing that, you'll then lift more. You'll then be able to lift more. There's lots of other things as well. You can add pauses in there. So, for example, if you were doing a shoulder press, you can pause at the bottom before driving up again. And what the pause does is it takes out any momentum, and then it builds the strength up in the bottom of the lift. It's the same with deadlift, squats, and things like that. So pause at the bottom of the motion just for a second, and then up again. Yeah, or even pulses. So, you could do an extra quarter rep as well. So there's lots and lots of different ways of kind of progressing the weight. If that next weight up is too big, look at some of those other things.
And then would you say that then over time, what you'll find is actually by doing that, you'll still, like say, grow that strength so that maybe in a few weeks' time,
Yeah,
try that weight again?
Yeah. And you can, so I would say, let's say for shoulder press, for example, one of the things I would say is that if you're pushing, say, 10 kilos for 10 reps, but 12.5 kilos is too much, I'll say, right, okay, go to 15 reps. If you can do 3 sets of 15 quite comfortably, then you're probably going to be able to do 12.5 kilos for something like 6 to 10 reps.
Yeah.
And then try it that way. And if 15 is not enough, go for 20, and the thing is, yes, that does add time to your workout, but it is going to progress, and you've just got to be patient, because what you'll find is when you start weightlifting, your gains in strength are massive. They can be really, really rapid. And if you've not exercised for a while, you'll get those, what they call newbie gains. And all that's happening is your brain is learning to control the muscles more effectively and efficiently. So we have what we call muscle recruitment. So when you start lifting, your brain's not actually very good at controlling the muscle. So you might only use, say, 50% of the muscle fibers that you've got there. So as you practice it, you're going to start recruiting more and more of the muscle fibers. So that 50% turns to 75, 80, 90, 100. But once you've got to maximum recruitment, then we need to start building the muscle, and that's slower. That's when it slows down, and that's when we've got to learn to be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Then the next one was about struggling to find the time for prepping foods, especially for lunches, just going for like easy options, like just grabbing something quick down the shop.
You had a great one for this that you've started doing.
Yeah, so I've been quite lucky is the wrong word, actually. It's not been very nice, but my partner's been working night shifts for the past couple of weeks. He's going back on days from next week, so I'm very excited. But where he's been working nights, I've still been cooking like he's home. And I will always cook. I mean, I've been using my recipe books quite a lot at the moment. I've been really enjoying planning my meals for the week and cooking them when I get in from work. It keeps me busy, gives me something to do. I'll still make 4 portions. I'm only eating 1. As I'm portioning out mine and spoon it into my bowl, I've got the 3 Tupperwares out next to it. So it is like 1 spoon in each, so that I know that they're all completely equal. I'm only having 1 portion, but we've then got 3 spare. Now, that then feeds him for the next night when he's at work, but it also means that I've got something for lunch, or if I do decide that actually I'm going to train tonight, I've been there a little bit longer and I can't bother to cook, there's something that's in the fridge all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, like with anything, like I was saying to you about, there's a salad that I made this week, but again, I still made up 4 portions of that all at once, so it's done.
Yeah.
And actually, it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to spend hours and hours in the kitchen. If you're making 1, it doesn't really take that much more time to make 4.
No.
You're done for the week then. And I know you do the same, like your overnight oats. You'll prep them all, like maybe different flavors in them, but you've then got them there for the week and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. And that's really, it's batch cooking, and I know it, but it's batch cooking in a different way. So you're not necessarily planning to batch cook. It's just you're cooking as though you're cooking for the family, or or doubling up. So you have a meal and you go, well, I'm going to make twice as much so that we can, if you're in a couple or a family. And I know one of my clients, I've got a client in mind in particular who, it's a massive thing for him. So he's him and his partner, him and his wife have cooked. They've got 2 kids. They've just doubled up. And then what the other thing they found is it's cheaper because they're buying stuff in bulk. It reduces the cost per portion. but they just make enough for the family, double it up, and then they've got tea later on in the week.
Yeah.
And they both work late. And what they found was that what they were doing is looking for the easy options. They were either ordering in or picking up a frozen pizza, which wasn't serving them health-wise.
Yeah.
So he sort of said, this has been it's a game changer. You know,
Yeah.
we're just, it's not any extra work. We just, you know, if we're frying off the mince, it's a kilo instead of 500 grams.
Yeah.
Chucking in 2 tins of tomatoes instead of 1. You know, and it's just doubling up. You know, it's kind of 400 grams of pasta instead of 200 grams, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just know that you've got an extra meal. With the oats, yeah, I make so a lot of people will make up the overnight oats for the next day, which is fine. But I just think rather than worrying about, you know, just
Every
do it all
day.
in one big thing, and then you just divvy it up. And if you are the only person eating that, you don't even have to be too fussy about getting equal amounts into different, because you're the only person who's eating it. You can divide the calories by 5. Yeah, it might be a bit different, but it doesn't really matter.
It's going to be minimal, isn't it?
Yeah. But if you are sharing it, then, you know, it is. It's just a spoonful. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't like what
some
people will. If you want to be really accurate, you'd weigh the whole thing and then weigh each portion and like split it that way. But I'm not that good. I use like serving spoon, 1 heaped in each. Oh, there's a bit more. Like that's roughly eyeball it. It's minimal. The other one that is a really good simple meal prep. I sampled one. I've had one. Well, I've probably made out 15, 20 of these now, and I've sampled one. I can confirm they're good. Is the breakfast bagels.
Yeah.
Where again, it's the same thing. If I'm cooking dinner, I'll just have the George Foreman on the side, which is a game changer as well as an air fryer. That will just go. Like cook the sausages, the chicken sausages, the bacon. Keep an eye on them whilst I'm cooking. I'm in the kitchen anyway, and then it's just a case of having the bagels open and then just going along and filling them up and closing them up, putting them in the fridge. Like it's just things simple for you.
I've done the same with the breakfast muffins. You know, the English muffins where you just make up 4 or 5 of them, and it's a lot of people are kind of, oh yeah, but it's the same thing for breakfast. What I would say to that, and I said this to a guy just before I came on here, it's like, well, what do you currently have for breakfast? And it's like, I just have Weetabix. Anything else? No, just have Weetabix.
Same thing.
Because it's easy. And I'm like, well, just have the same, you know, and actually you can think, well, I'm going to have overnight oats, and I do overnight oats every day in the week, Monday to Friday. I make them up Sunday night. They last for 5 days. Don't worry about that. They keep in the fridge for 5 days. And I'll just change the flavor. So I'll add different fruit, or I'll layer bananas. My favorite is chop up some bananas, lay them out, and then a little drizzle of Biscoff over the top. And that does the bananas. People might go, oh, banana. They do keep, you know, because you've sealed them in and it's airtight. They keep.
And then you put them in the fridge. It's
absolutely fine. You know, absolutely fine. Yes. If somebody just to preempt somebody go, yeah, but the starches turn into sugars. Yeah, but that's just making it easier. So your body would have done that anyway.
Yeah,
it's absolutely fine. But make stuff in bulk. And
it's a mindset thing, isn't it? I guess, like you say, like, oh, but then I'm having the same thing for breakfast every day, and it's like, well, you already are. Like you say, as humans, we tend to have a few foods that we have in rotation. A few favorite meals, especially if you think from like a family perspective. The children will eat, like they'll have their favorites, and you know it's easy, you know everyone will eat it. So you tend to have them on rotation quite a lot. And I think when it comes to their meal prep and meal planning, people suddenly think, oh, well, I don't want the same thing all the time. But actually, if you think about your current diet, chances are you probably are eating the same things already.
Yeah, and you know, the breakfast, most people have the same breakfast. Lunches, you could make a couple of different things. So salads is a great example. You know, at this time of year, you could chop up. Now, I have chopped up 5 days worth of salad, and it keeps okay in the fridge. It gets a little bit wilty by day 5, but it's fine. But you could do 3 days, chop up. I mean, it takes, you know, chop up a load of lettuce, cucumber, tomato, add some peppers or whatever in there. And then the protein source can change. So you might have, say, a bit of chicken breast on one. You might put a little bit of smoked salmon or some prawns or something on another. You might do like a cheeseburger salad and have some fried off minced beef on another, whatever, or ham, or just check, and or you can change the sauces and the dressing, go for some different low calorie sauces. So you can vary it there, but the base is the same. And the same with the overnight oats. The base is the same, add different fruits and nuts and things on the day. But you could also prep maybe a couple of different lunches. Now you mentioned those glass pot things where you can kind of make.
Yes, said I've seen someone do it quite a lot recently, where they've got like the glass prep dishes and then an easy meal prep. I haven't tried it myself yet. Is to get them, then you'll put like the dried rice in them, all your liquids, your marinated meat, in this case like a chicken curry type thing, all your veg. Put that in the oven. It's all cooked in one dish, but then it's already in the Tupperware. Like you don't even have extra washing up.
And you can change it, so you could even mess around with the flavoring. So you could have two the same, and then you've got two different lunches. And if you do that for your lunch and your breakfast, your dinner can be more varied, but plan it. And actually, when you think, if people think long and hard about what they eat, they don't eat different things every single day of the year. They will have some stuff on rotation. It might be a weekly rotation, it might be a fortnightly rotation, 3 weeks, whatever. You'll have this rotation of standard meals, because there'll be things like spaghetti bolognese, shepherd's pie, curries. They might have like a pizza, you can make your own or buy them in, but they'll have, and even people who sort of say, oh, well, I like getting a takeaway because it's varied. I can guarantee that we'll pick one of 4 dishes.
Oh, yeah. You go for the same thing from the takeaway every time. I've got my order for the Chinese, the Indian, like I know exactly what I'm having.
Exactly. And and we sort of say, oh, we like variety. No, what we like is ease. That's what we like. We are predisposed to look for the easiest option. That's what human nature is. And I'm not saying we're lazy, we're just trying to conserve energy. That's what our natural kind of tendencies are. So we're just looking for that easy option. So if cooking and prepping and planning seems overwhelming, make it easy. Go to the shops and buy ready meals. There's nothing wrong with them if you get your healthy ready meals, and there's lots of options. The supermarkets do their own high protein versions. You've got things like Gym Kitchen. There's the My Protein options. There's loads and loads of them. I always have a stock of those in. I know I've got some in the freezer in the house. I've got some of the Aldi ones, the protein ones. They're not very big, so I get some frozen veg, cook that alongside it, chuck it all in a bowl, and it's a filling meal that if I'm not able to cook a big meal, I know I can eat something that's going to taste good, keep me full, serve my goals, and it's ready in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is less than no effort. You stick it in the microwave or in the oven or whatever, and it's ready to go in 10 minutes, which is less time than it takes for the delivery to come from the takeaway. So don't overthink it, keep it simple, and have those backup plans. I've always got the backup plans. And the other thing is, if you've got a good meal prep company in the area, and you've got the financial kind of capacity to do it, it's worth just I pay somebody to make me 5 meals a week.
Yours looks so good. I'm jealous. I'm so far away.
And it's ace. I mean, it's literally, I walk 200 meters that way, knock on the door, pick them up on a Monday, and that's 5 meals for me done. And and then people are like, yeah, but it costs. For me, the cost of that is massively outweighed by the time saved. I get 5 meals that are different. So that variety thing, I just chuck in a load of extra veg or salad on the side, but it saves me, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 hours a week that I would be spending cooking those things.
But again, you're looking at the cost, but if you were having a takeaway every week,
oh Christ, yeah,
it's where your values sit as well, isn't it? Like you say, you value you work long hours, it's having that time in the evenings and being able to have something quick, easy that meets your goals.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's thinking about that, isn't it? Like you said, everything's expensive in certain ways, but it's weighing up what's important to you and what you want to be spending that money on.
And the cost thing is when people say, well, that's expensive, and I've had this conversation with a few people, like, oh yeah, but paying for your meal prep's expensive, but so's going for your daily Starbucks. You probably spend as much on Starbucks as I do on a meal prep.
So expensive.
You know, or things like, you know, you're going out, you're having a takeaway every Friday, and a takeaway, me and Rosie had one a couple of weeks ago. It's the first one we've had in a while.
Yeah.
And we just had, we had a curry each, we shared a rice and we shared a naan bread. And for the two of us, it was 28 quid, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and it was literally just two curries, one portion of rice, and a small naan bread. And that was it. 28 quid. And I'm just thinking, if I could have bought two of those meals to feed us for less than half the price.
Yeah.
So it is, and I'm not saying don't have takeaways. I'm not saying, you know, but it's what you prioritize. And for me, like you said, having a couple of extra hours in the day, and I can help people, I can do work, and then switch off earlier in the evening, so I can literally switch off and relax. That is worth more to me than the £6 per meal it cost me to buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Good.
And the only last one is something you wanted to talk about that you heard earlier in the week in regards to the gap and the gain.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, so this is something that we've talked about on this this thing before, where rather than focusing on where you want to go, focus on how far you've travelled, how far you've come in your journey, and we're really bad. I think again we are predisposed at just focusing on where we want to be, and we have these end goals. And it was in a podcast, the ESG podcast, really, really good. I listen to that one regularly. They do loads. There's like Q&As, there's mindset ones, there's short, long ones. It's one of the ones that I listen to regularly. Emma Story Gordon and her team of coaches. One of the ways that and they talk about the same thing, but they talked about the gap and the gain. And the gap is basically where you are now to where you want to be. That is the gap. So you're looking at where you currently are and then looking at where your goal is. And we're focusing on that gap too much. And I'm not saying you can't, and she says the same, I'm not saying don't think about that. Don't think about where you want to be, but look back. Often people forget to look back and see how, and this is why I always recommend doing progress photos. And one of my biggest regrets is not taking more photos of my own journey. I've got very, very few photos from when I was at my biggest. In fact, if there are no photos of me at my heaviest, I made a massive effort to stay away from the camera. I refused. And I think there's one where I'm holding my nephew, who is now 8. He wasn't even 1 year old. So, you know, we're talking like 8 years ago, and I was around 21 and a half stone at my heaviest. And my family don't know how heavy I was, but 21 and a half stone, 136 kilos, just over peaked. And I wish I'd taken more photos to look back on and actually remind me. I've got a picture of me at my lightest when I did my first triathlon, and I was 73 kilos. You know, and then I look back at that and the progress photos I've got. Every time I do a kind of a bulk or a cut, I take a photo at the start and I look and compare so I can see what the changes are. And if I look at myself now compared to 8 years ago, there's clearly a massive difference. But again, if I look at myself now compared to when I was at my lightest, which is, it's about 2 stone lighter than I am now, I'm as lean now as I was then.
Yeah.
So if I'm 14 kilos heavier, it tells me, because if I just look at the scales, I'm going, oh, I'm 2 stone heavier, which for most people, you think that's not good. But my body fat percentage is very, very similar. So that weight gain has got to be muscle. And you can tell by looking at my physique compared to when I was then. Okay. So I am very different. And I think we need to look at where we've come, look at our progress to remind ourselves, because yes, I have an end goal. Mine's not as clear. I just want to get as strong and as big as I possibly can. I'm 44 this year, so it's limited, but you know, I still have that goal of wanting to push. And although it might seem like it's getting further and further and further away, because it does, I think if I just look back and remind myself, actually, I've progressed a lot. You know, I have gained muscle. I've gained a lot of muscle. And that helps you kind of keep going. It helps keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
A fat loss journey, especially, and we've talked about the dip before as well, especially, you know, when you start, you see this initial rapid drop and then it plateaus.
Yeah.
You need to, you know, and that plateau can then drop and plateau and drop and plateau. And when every time you hit a plateau, rather than thinking, oh, I've got this far to go, just look back and see where you've come from. And I said it today to a client this morning, you know, she's lost a stone. She's got a few more to go. But I said, look, you've dropped a stone.
Yeah.
That's massive. Right. And she's like, yeah, I have. I've dropped a stone. And, you know, I said, you've done it in a good amount of time. You know, you've done it in sort of 7 or 8 weeks. Great time. Let's focus on the next target. And it just keeps her motivated. So, yeah, don't focus on the gap between where you are now and where you are in the future. Spend more time looking back at the gains.
And also, it doesn't have to relate to weight.
No.
Like, if I look back, I thought about it earlier, actually. The reason we're a bit early today is because I've ruined all the schedule by being out this evening. And I thought about it earlier in that I was like, cool, if I think of me a few years ago, I wouldn't have eaten carbs yesterday because that would have been terrible. And I wouldn't have eaten any today. I've been to the gym and done a leg session this morning. I've needed some carbs. I had carbs with my breakfast and I've had them with my lunch, and I'm going out in a bit in a tight fit dress. And I, like, a few years ago, that'd now be filling me with dread. Like, what have I done? You know, I'm going to look bloated. I'm going to look awful. I shouldn't have done that. You know, why have I trained? All of those things. And now actually I'm like, I feel my body what it needs.
Yeah.
It'll still be how I look. And it's not always based on your scale wins. You've got to think of your mindset wins as well. Like, if you've started meal prepping more, if you're eating a more balanced diet, that's still a massive gain, even if you've still got a long way to go.
Looking at all the health markers, and we're talking about Carrie again. Carrie was, you know, a pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic effectively, and she's now in remission. You know, her cholesterol has come down. Health is better. She's stronger. All of those are not measured by the scale.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, it's not measured by the scale. And the one thing as well, and I've said this to a client this afternoon, again, about the mindset, and I've used this gap and gain idea with her as well. We have this arbitrary goal and I said, where's that goal come from? Where has that goal actually come from? You know, is it something is it from your early years? Is it from your 20s when you were at that weight and you thought you were happy? Or you think now that you look good at that weight when you're in your 20s? I said, but you're not the same person. You know, you've had kids, you train differently, whereas before you'd have just done cardio and you've got no muscle mass. I mean, she's in great shape, this client. And I said, you've got muscle mass. And now what we're trying to do is show that off.
Yeah.
You will be heavier than you were then because you have more muscle. So these goals that we have are arbitrary numbers. Where do they actually come from?
Yeah.
And it was a post done by, I follow somebody called This Woman Lifts on social media, and she put a post on about this, where a lot of our goals come from stuff that we've seen on social media, and it's trend based. You know, in the late 90s, early noughties, everything was about as being as skinny as you possibly could. You've got Heroin Chic, there was Kate Moss and all the supermodels, stick thin. Everybody wanted to do that. That is, to me, that's not attractive. To me, that's dangerously unhealthy.
Yeah.
And there are people who were in that phase, like Jamila Jamil, who's come out and said, I damaged myself.
Yeah, she's said, hasn't she, all of the damage she's actually done that you can't see on the outside. It's how she's, you know, all her bone density and all of these things from being that thin.
Yeah.
She's a massive advocate for, you know.
And that is purely from trends. That is trends. That is fashion. Now it's different. You know, you've got this big bums and things like that. And
growing glutes, you
know, glutes for girls, growing the glutes. In 5 years, it'll be different. You know, and it's cyclical. The whole fitness industry is cyclical. We go around, and we talked about this last week with the diets that we're low carb again at the moment. This time it's carnivore. Last time it was keto. The time before that, you got Atkins. It's the same diet rehashed with a different name. We're getting into the clean eating phase. In another year, 2-3 years time, we'll get it's all about balance phase. And people like us, like Ben Carpenter, There's loads of them out there. You know, they advocate for this balance within our diet, and you know, you can eat a predominantly whole food diet, but still include some of the foods that you enjoy in there. That message never changes. But you get these people going, no, you need to get rid of processed foods. In a couple of years' time, we'll get the, you know, be kind to yourself, because we're all having eating disorders because we're avoiding processed food. So allow some of those processed foods, or eat. Actually, it's the, you can eat whatever you want, and then we'll go too far the other way, and then we'll go, no, we're eating whatever we want. That's why we're fat. So we've got to go back to clean eating.
And I think that's the thing. Like, I was talking to a colleague about this the other day. I said, you've got to be very careful where you're getting your advice from, because there are certain people out there, influencers or people that are online, that every however long are changing their angle all the time. And like I said about carnivore, MD coming out and actually admitting that maybe it's not the best thing. There's admitting to your mistakes, but then there's the other side where there's people that are changing their business angle every, you know, just to try and keep up with the trends. And it's like, well, actually, that's not how it should be. That if it's evidence based and it's actually going by the science of how our bodies work, like that is what you.
And it's so confusing.
Yeah.
The guy I spoke to before I came on here, one of the things that he said is that we talked about he was one of the ones who asked about, you know, well, how do I meal prep? And I said, ready meals. And he's like, well, can I have ready meals? Because I'm told that we need to avoid ultra processed food. One of the things I suggested to him to get more veg in was like frozen veg. He said, but that's processed. But but it's more nutrition in that than your fresh vegetables. Use frozen fruit, use tinned fruit, but look for the ones in water as opposed to syrup, or fruit juice as opposed to syrup. You know, these tinned foods and fruits, a lot of them will help you, and you know, and they're perfectly nutritious, and they're easy to use, and make things a little bit more accessible. If you listen to all the advice on there, your plate would be empty. Because you've got people saying don't eat vegetables because of the defense chemicals. Don't eat porridge oats because they contain phytic acid, which is an anti-nutrient. You know, you shouldn't eat meat because it causes cancer, but you shouldn't. You should also eat meat because it's what our ancestors ate. You shouldn't have it. Should be raw food, but then it should also be cooked. You can't eat. You know, you can't eat noodles. You can't. I'm like, you can't drink too much water because water dehydrates you, but then you need to have water to live. And it's like, come on, guys. What the hell can we eat?
Yeah, here's my bowl of nothing. The fitness chef, he does some really good posts.
I've seen,
like, here's my bowl of air because I can't do anything wrong now, you know.
And I've seen loads of people do that, and it's literally, if you followed all the advice that was out there, you would eat nothing, because you know, you wouldn't even breathe because oxygen's bad for you. Unfortunately, and it's the same with, like, there's again a massive one. I saw another one that popped up on my feed about hormones and cortisol and stuff like that. And it's like, no, okay, cortisol, yes, too much of it can be an issue. However, we also need cortisol. Cortisol is a natural hormone. If you didn't have enough cortisol, you wouldn't wake up in the morning. There is a natural increase that wakes us up. We need cortisol when we exercise because it helps with our fitness. You know, when you exercise and you stress the body, our cortisol will go up, but that increases performance so that you can exercise for longer, therefore increasing your fitness, building your strength. If we were worried about, you know, oh, cortisol causes weight gain. No, it does. I mean, there are mechanisms that cortisol can increase appetite. If you are stressed and your cortisol goes up, we increase our appetite.
I'm a massive stress eater. Like, I know that about myself. If I'm stressed, I just want, and it's not that I'll crave fruit. I'll want an extra chocolate bar.
Changing your diet is going to do nothing to change your cortisol level. There is no magic diet. There's no magic exercise. And they're just going cortisol, sign up to my plan. But if you sign up to their plan and then look at it who's somebody's just a normal coach, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, and they're just going cortisol because it's the latest thing. And they'll change again. And this is getting back to what you just said. There's a couple of them that I still follow because it's interesting. They used to be part of the balanced eating crowd. Now they're selling cortisol programs. Next, they'll be selling something else. And I call them out on it all the time. There's one of them, you know, they've done the insulin thing as well.
Yeah.
And I saw one of them who recently just put about cortisol. I'm like, but the program you sold was there to reduce insulin last week. So have you changed the program? Probably not, because there's no way she's rewritten an entire program in a week and
Yeah,
all the
exactly.
nutrition advice in a week just to, it's rubbish.
That's where you've got to be really, really careful. Whereas if you look at the ones that are very consistent in what they're telling you, like what they're saying, and they're following the science-backed research.
Yeah.
You know, like look at Martin McDonald, he'll always tell you like what the latest research is, and when these new buzzwords come out, he's really good at explaining them on his podcast, like just seeing.
I think there's the litmus test is if you are unsure of advice, comment on the post and ask them to give you the research papers, and they should be able to give you the PubMed ID, the PMID, which is just a string of sort of 7 to 9 numbers that you can then go and have a look at the research and read it. And if they can't give you that research, then they don't know what they're talking about. And if they can't give you research that isn't animal based, because we're not animals, let's face it, you know, if they can't give you human-based trials and human-based studies within the research, then again, usually, not always, but generally, you can kind of go, yeah, this is not true. This isn't going to work.
Just be careful.
Yeah. And I think if you've got people who can legitimately give you the evidence, give you and explain it, then and the message, as you said there, is consistent. Look back through their feed. Is it consistent? I'm not saying it shouldn't change, because with nutrition science,
research does,
yeah. So, you know, there are some things that will change, but they should be willing to go, do you know what? This is what I used to believe. And I've done this as well. So this is what I used to believe. I have seen some new science and research and stuff coming out. Now, this is what I would recommend instead.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool. I think that's it.
So that was another wheel rant to end on there.
Yeah. Always. Oh, I missed. I didn't have one last week, did I?
Let it all out now. You're good for the afternoon.
I'll have a good afternoon. I've got an hour before I need to go down to the gym. And then clients all evening. But I finish at 8.
You do.
I do finish at 8. All right, guys. We'll be back next week with another Q&A. Keep an eye out for any question boxes and things. I will try and remember to post one this week. But yeah, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask us. And we will see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.